Hi, I'm Cindy from bdancewear.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a leotard like this. I've turned a leotard into a dress, customizing it. It's super simple, super easy, and I'm going to show you how to do it. I know I say that about a lot of things, but when you see it broken down, you're going to find out it's much more simple than you think, okay? So first thing you're going to want to do is, I'm going to pull this up here. I picked a halter leotard to do as the base. You'll want to pick out, this particular one has 4 different fabrics. It has a fabric on this side of the bust, a fabric on this side of the bust, but this fabric is also swirled into the bottom. And then I just picked a few corresponding fabrics. So first thing I would do, and I would use chalk, not a permanent marker. I'm going to show you with a permanent marker because it makes it a lot easier when I show this process. If you put the leotard on the girl, it's the best way to do it, because if you mark it before it's stretched out, you could end up with the top part like this or way down here. So if you put it on the girl and then you decide, where do I want this? Do I want it at the bust line, under? I would usually say don't go across the bust line because it's gonna look like it's too short for her. So pick where you want that to be and then use the chalk and just mark across. Now you're gonna unfold it, make sure it's all even later on before you actually sew anything down. A real simple way to make sure it's even when you lay it down, if you have that chalk mark go from seam to seam and you lay it flat, you will see that it matches up. It's the same distance on both sides. So by folding it in half, you can make sure that it matches up. Usually what I'll do is I'll take the leotard off and fold it completely in half, put straight pins across the half that I can see. And then you can flip it around and see, did those pins go into the same spots behind? Did it hit the same line? If not, you can just erase the chalk or an old bar of soap and change it like that. Now that we have this line here, you'll also want to measure how long do you want this. I've used swirls here, lots of swirls, so when she spins, it spins around. But how do you want this to come across the bust line? So I'm going to just go ahead and mark where we would want it, from here to here. So it kind of cuts across, and it's up to you. You might want it straight in half. Where those fabrics meet up, if you put some rhinestones or something, just kind of finish it off so you don't just have a blunt line. It'll help kind of soften it up a little. Then I'll cut where, see how I have these straps here? Just some gather up fabric with elastic. I put elastic behind it for support. You got to decide where you want that to be. And let's go right here, right across there. And we'll make it even on both sides, obviously. For sake of speed, I'm just going to go ahead and start on it here without double checking it. Obviously, if you're doing it for someone, you want to make sure and double check it. Okay, so we're going to start off with this side, where there's going to be some lace. I'm going to pin it, fold it into place, stretch it across, and then I'm going to take some pins and pin it. You want to make sure that if you use safety pins, whatever you use, you try it on the person before you sew everything down. Make sure, because if you pull this tight, it will change the size of the leotard. And then just keep going and pin it all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to put some pins. For sake of speed, we're going to go ahead and get started on this side. Like I said, make sure and double check all this stuff. So once you have that pinned down, you want to leave some excess so you can fold it under and top stitch it. But then what you're going to do is you'll go along and cut with a little extra, because you don't want to sew with all this fabric here, a little extra, but it's all pinned into place so that you can go along and sew it. On the back here, when we're done with all this and we go to cut this, we're going to take some fabric that will gather up here and stretch up like that. You can just cover up whatever straps are here as long as it doesn't show through the lace. If it's going to show through, then you'll want to do it a little differently. So now that I've showed you how to pin this, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to sew it. Remember, this line here is where we're going to sew the skirt on. When we do sew the skirt, we will be sewing it from this side so that when we drop that down, you don't see where it matches together. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's move to pulling it off the mannequin and getting to the next step. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, so now we have taken it off the mannequin, and you can see here I've cut about a ½ inch longer all the way around. Any parts you're going to see, you're going to want to make sure and take the pin out, fold it under so that line is right. The folded line is there, so it has a nice clean line. On these parts, you're going to want to pin it so it goes under like that, all the way around. Now up here and down here, we're going to sew something on, so you don't have to worry about that clean line. You just want to make sure that what you're sewing goes across there. So we're going to set our machine at a zigzag, and there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and start down the center because that's the most important. Now I'm using a different color thread so you can really see it. And we're going to just go ahead and zigzag that. Now I've talked about it before that if you have a stretch stitch, that's really the best stitch to use. Once you're done with this, you'll want to definitely stretch it. And if you can get woolly thread for the bottom, that'll help secure it. And then we're going to go ahead and go across this line. And keep going. On here, I'm just going to stop there. You have to decide, do you want to go all the way to the back or what? So let's go ahead and show you the top part. Now we folded it over the edge just so it gives nice clean top and doesn't look homemade. And we're going to zigzag that, slightly stretching as we're going. And like I said, stretch stitch on all these spots is the best. And we're going to go across there. And you always want to pin this, not just wing it, so that way you know it's not going to be too baggy or not enough. I'm going to just go ahead and sew it. If you're experienced, you know what you're doing and you can just fold it. You're fine. But if you're not experienced, pin it. Make sure that everything is good on it so that you don't end up overstretching and getting a weird curve or tuck, or it pulls it smaller. If you're new to this, the more pins, the better. I'm actually gonna zigzag right down the seam on this one, because then I can put some stuff in there if I'd like and just cut it shorter. I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off. If you want, extend that line to the back. Do it however you want. So I've done it where it stops. That works if you're using the same color. I actually usually will continue across the back just at least a little bit, but for speed's sake, let's do it this way. Now, the circle pieces that I've cut, these loops right here, they're really easy to do, and so you can do these in multiple colors or you can have the same one. What you're going to want to be careful of how it curves. You can have them all going the same way or go opposite. You're just going to want to make sure that you don't have big gaps and spaces in between. So what I'm going to do, the first thing I always do if I'm going to be sewing something not flat the way it is, I'm going to put this on here. This is the way I want it to drape down. So I know it's going to be like that. So let's flip it up and then move this. So that way I can stitch here, and when I fold it down, it's got a clean line. So let's go ahead and pin that into place. And then what you would do is you would just do this with, pin them all into place and then go in and sew them. So let's go ahead and sew that. And for time's sake, I'm just going to do one, but clearly on that outfit, I repeated it. And I'm going to back up a little. And you'll want to make sure all those are secure. So I'm going to show you now. So see how I have it folded like this? I've made sure that the right side of the fabric is here. So when it flips down, and then it's got a nice clean line right there, you wouldn't know that it's not sewn into it. And then what you can do is just trim this down so that you don't have a flap, so nobody can see that. And then just keep going all the way around. Now for this top part here, you can either keep the top halter on. You don't want to just use mesh or lace to be the only thing holding it up, because if you do that, it's going to rip, it's going to tear, it's going to stretch out of shape. But like we did down here, I've cut a piece, and the way I figured out how wide I want this piece to be is I've gone 2.5 times that width because I want it really gathered up. So I'm going to put this here so you can see it. So I've done the same thing. This is the side I want to see of the lace. I'm going to flip it down. If you're doing it with something like this, what you can do is fold that to the back side and pin it into place. And if you weren't doing it with something like that, you know, it was a smaller piece behind, just fold it like that so it looks like a clean edge on it. So we're gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna fold a little behind. And you wanna make sure and sew over the line where you sewed before so you don't see those threads. Now this right here, see there's extra because I want it to be gathered up. I'm just gonna go through and make little pinches in there to make it the way I want it to look. So decide how much you want it to gather up and then just put it like that. And I'll hold this up in 1 second and show you. So it's pinned like that, and it's really, really easy to pin. Just get the look that you like. Now we're gonna go down and we're gonna zigzag over that same spot. Let's see, too many threads in there right now. If your machine can't handle it, I know I say this all the time, if your machine can't go over the needles, then make sure and pull the needles out before you get to that part of the machine or to that part where you're sewing. And then just take them out and go back. I'm going to show you on here and then when I pull it up. So see, if we had a color and this lace matched, that would hide and you wouldn't even see it, and you could just tie that all together. And see how it gives a nice clean line right here? Once again, I'll show you that. See how I zigzagged it? All the rough edge is there. You'll want to make sure and trim all the threads and everything before you then flip it up. And then I would suggest, if you're doing it like this, that you also tack it into place back here. So that way, just a quick tack and gather it up. That way it doesn't separate and fall apart. That way those straps will stay together when they're around the neck. So I just did that real quick. And then also remember, you can either leave this side blank and just rhinestone it, or you follow the same process that we did here over here. And it's easier to do them both at the same time because then you'll get cleaner lines all around. But this is how you do it. It's really that easy. And if you want to find out how I made the swirls, we have a video for that. So just look that up. Super easy. You just cut a circle and then start winding around a little smaller. But it's really that easy. And if you want to find out more about this and other projects like this, go ahead and take a look at our other videos. Thank you for watching our video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure and click here to subscribe because we're going to have some amazing DIY videos coming out. And if you want to get our free complete dance costume DIY guide, click right here or go to bdancewear.com/DIY guide. And lastly, if you have any questions or ideas for future videos, please leave it in the comments below. Thanks again for watching our video, and remember, be original, be colorful, be dancewear.com.